If you really want to know how deeply a man loves you, don't listen to what he says in the light, watch what his soul does in the dark. When the flowers are in a vase and the text messages are read, when the compliments have faded into yesterday's echoes, what remains? The Stoics had a simple rule. Don't judge a person by their promises, judge them by their patterns. Tonight, we're not interested in the polished pattern he shows the world. We're going into the hidden room where the mask slips, the body relaxes, and his real feelings quietly step forward. In that private space of intimacy, something revealing happens. The performance ends. The small talk dies. His nervous jokes fall away. And what's left is the truth he can't script. How he looks at you, how his body responds to yours, how he holds you when no one is watching. Those tiny, unguarded gestures, those are the places where real love either shows up or doesn't. Carl Jung, the great explorer of the inner world, believed that a person's most honest behavior appears in their most vulnerable moments. It's like a map of the soul drawn not with ink, but with instinct. A Stoic would add, in those same moments, character stands naked. No titles, no roles, no public image, just who he really is, when desire, fear, tenderness, and ego collide. In this video, we're going to read that map together. We'll look beyond dramatic declarations and grand romantic scenes and focus instead on the subtle signals that are almost impossible to fake. The way he reaches for you, the way he listens to the silence between words, the way he responds when your heart is soft or when your guard is up. These are not just cute behaviors. They are evidence of whether his attachment is shallow, convenience, or deep commitment. Think of this as a quiet investigation into the male psyche, using both Jung's depth psychology and Stoic clarity as our compass. I'll ask you questions along the way, not to make you paranoid, but to help you see what's already there. Has his tenderness become a consistent pattern, or is it just a performance on special nights? Does being close to him make you feel safer in your own skin, or more unsure of your worth? By the end, my goal is simple, that you no longer feel confused by mixed signals. Instead, you'll understand the language of his unconscious, the love that speaks through actions when words fall silent. Because once you learn to read these signs, you won't chase empty promises. You'll recognize real devotion when it's standing right in front of you, or when it's painfully absent. So, let's step into that hidden room together and begin with the very first sign. His love runs deep. When a man looks into your eyes in the dark and doesn't flinch, that's the moment his soul tells you the truth. His mouth never could. There's a kind of eye contact that isn't about flirting or seduction. It's quieter. He's not just looking at you. He's looking into you, like he's trying to read the weather of your heart, your fears, your longing, the parts of you don't show anyone. Carl Jung once compared the meeting of two personalities to a chemical reaction. If there's a real reaction, both are transformed. That deep gaze in an intimate moment is exactly that, a silent reaction between two souls, not just two bodies. The Stoics would say, don't be fooled by words. Study what a person's eyes do when the mask slips. In the most vulnerable moments, a man who truly cares doesn't look away. He doesn't bury his face in distraction or hide behind jokes. He actually seeks your eyes and holds the gaze, even though it exposes him too. In that fragile second, he is unarmored light and shadow, strength and insecurity standing there in front of you with no shield. That kind of openness takes courage. Men who are only chasing something shallow usually avoid it. They might be physically close, but emotionally, they keep a safe distance. They close their eyes, turn away quickly, or rush past the moment, because looking into you would mean being seen themselves, and that's what they're not ready for. A loving gaze, on the other hand, feels like a doorway. His eyes become a gate to his inner world. You sense it. He's not inspecting you. He's inviting you in. Jung would call it an encounter between your conscious self and his unconscious attachment. The tiny micro expressions, the softness around his eyes, the way his face relaxes when you meet his gaze, betray more truth than 1,000 I love you texts. Ask yourself, when you're closest to him, does he look through you as if you're just part of the scene? Or into you as if you are the scene? Do you feel studied or deeply seen? Stoicism teaches us not to cling to fantasies, but to reality. His eyes, in those unguarded seconds, are reality. If they open like a window and stay there, steady and gentle, you're not just a passing adventure, you're part of his inner life. And that's only the first sign. Because once we leave the eyes, we have to ask an even deeper question. What does his heart do with your happiness? When a man's real feelings wake up, you can see it in one simple shift. He stops asking, how can I get what I want? And starts quietly living. How can I make sure you're okay? This is the second sign, and it's deeper than romance. When a man truly loves you, your joy is no longer background noise. It becomes part of his internal compass. He doesn't move from obligation or to look like a good guy on paper. He moves because something in him relaxes when you are at ease. Your smile is not a trophy, it's a kind of home. Carl Jung wrote, "Where love rules, there is no will to power." A man who is genuinely involved with you doesn't need to dominate the moment, impress you with performance, or keep score. In intimacy, he's not trying to win, he's trying to connect. Watch what he does with the small, unglamorous details. Does he pay attention to your breathing, the tension in your shoulders, the way your body softens or stiffens? Does he slow down when you're unsure? Adjust when you pull back? Ask what feels good without making you feel like a burden for needing something different. The Stoics taught that love is proven in what we consistently choose, not in what we occasionally feel. A man who loves with depth will, over time, show the same pattern. He checks in with your experience, not just his own. He remembers the tiny details you once whispered in passing. He's curious about your inner world, not just your outer reactions. Even in bed, he isn't using your body as a stage for his ego. He is treating your trust as something sacred and fragile, like a garden, not a battlefield. Jung would say that in these moments, a man's anima, his inner feminine side, has begun to awaken. That part of him carries tenderness, care, and the longing for real emotional fusion. When he's connected to it, he doesn't feel less masculine for being gentle. He feels more whole. You'll notice it in the way he listens when you speak, in how he adjusts his touch without defensiveness, in how your pleasure brings a softness to his face that he couldn't fake if he tried. So ask yourself, does he simply enjoy you, or is he invested in your well-being? Do you feel like a prop in his story, or a soul he's actively protecting and honoring? Because when a man's joy truly lives inside your joy, you're not just dealing with attraction, you're witnessing devotion. And that devotion becomes even clearer in what he does next, when the rush fades, the lights dim, and the night becomes quiet again. The truest thing a man ever says to you often happens after he's already said nothing at all. There is a quiet, decisive moment that almost no one talks about. It's not the kiss, not the peak of passion, not the movie scene you've seen 100 times. It's what happens after, when the rush fades, the body softens, and there is nothing left to perform. In that soft darkness, a man shows you whether it was just a physical act or a doorway into something much deeper. Carl Jung wrote that dreams are like a hidden door into the cosmic night of the soul. Right after intimacy, the mind slips into something very similar to a waking dream. The ego relaxes. The social mask loosens. In that in-between space, his unconscious speaks the loudest. A Stoic would say, don't judge love in the fireworks of pleasure, judge it in the silence that follows when there is nothing to gain from pretending. Watch what he does with that silence. Some men roll over, grab their phone, drift away into their own world as if the moment is finished, as if you were a scene they just walked out of. That doesn't make them monsters, it just tells you clearly this was mostly about the body. The distance returns the moment desire is satisfied. But when a man is truly attached to you, something very different happens. He pulls you closer instead of away. He lets you feel the steady weight of his arm around you, the slow rhythm of his heartbeat against your back or under your ear. He may run his fingers through your hair, trace slow circles on your skin, or whisper something small and vulnerable, an old memory, a private fear, a hope he hasn't said out loud to anyone else. Sometimes he doesn't say anything at all, but the way he holds you says, I'm still here, not just in your body, but with your whole self. That kind of closeness is not decoration, it's data. It's the unconscious wish to extend connection beyond the physical into the emotional and spiritual. You can feel the difference in your own nervous system. Do you fall into a sense of warmth, safety, and being cherished? Or do you feel strangely alone next to someone who is just inside your most intimate space? Jung might call this the soul's instinct for union. The Stoics would call it reality revealing itself. Either way, your job is not to explain it away, but to notice. Because when a man chooses closeness after the climax, he's telling you his love is not just about intensity, it's about presence. And if you look closely, that presence doesn't stop there. It begins to shape the very rhythm between you, turning two separate lives into something like a quiet, unspoken dance. Sometimes the clearest sign that two people belong together is not in what they say, but in how their bodies quietly start moving like they've known the same song for years. This fourth sign is subtle, but once you notice it, you can't unsee it. The dance of two. It's that strange, almost mystical harmony that appears when a man is truly connected to you. Your breathing starts to match without trying. His heartbeat slows as yours calms. The way you shift, turn, or reach for him is answered by his body as if it was already halfway there. No one rehearsed it. No one planned it, yet somehow you're moving together instead of around each other. Modern science calls this limbic synchronization your emotional brains tuning into the same frequency. Psychologists talk about mirroring. When we care deeply, we unconsciously reflect the posture, rhythm, and energy of the person in front of us. Carl Jung would say there's something archetypal here, the divine couple, that ancient image of two halves aching toward wholeness. When a man loves you, his nervous system doesn't just tolerate your presence, it starts to attune to it. The Stoics weren't neuroscientists, but they understood this in their own way. They believed that true connection aligns our inner worlds with reality. When you are with the right person, you don't feel like you're fighting the moment. You feel like you're flowing with it. There is less forcing, less performance, less control, more noticing, more responding, more quiet yes in the space between you. You might feel it in small scenes. The way his hand finds yours exactly when anxiety rises in your chest. The way he adjusts his pace when you slow down, without you having to ask. The way a hug with him doesn't feel like two bodies colliding, but like one shape being completed for a second. Even in intimacy, his movements don't feel like a script he's running on you. They feel like a conversation your bodies are having together. Now, compare that to something casual and shallow. The gestures are a little off. The timing feels forced. You bump into each other physically and emotionally. You're in the same room, but you still feel like two separate planets pulling away on different orbits. That isn't evil, it's just information. It tells you the connection hasn't dropped down to the level of the nervous system, the soul, the archetype. It's still mostly on the surface. The point isn't to romanticize every moment of harmony, or to panic when a step is missed. It's to honor what your body already knows. When love is real, it doesn't just sound different, it moves different. And once you see that, you can begin to ask a deeper question. Why do these four signs appear in the first place? What is love trying to make of both of you beneath the surface? If you've ever wondered why love can feel like a blessing and an earthquake at the same time, Jung would say, that's not an accident. That's the real work beginning. Up to this point, we've talked about signs, his eyes, his care for your joy, his closeness after intimacy, the quiet dance your bodies fall into. But these aren't random romantic details. They are the surface ripples of something happening much deeper inside him, a psychological and spiritual process Jung called the encounter with anima, shadow, and the journey toward individuation. The Stoics would simply call it this: love as a training ground for character. Every man carries within him an inner feminine image. Jung called it the anima. It's not a fantasy woman. It's the emotional, intuitive, receptive part of his own soul. When he truly falls in love, it feels, on some deep level, like recognition. That's why he experiences you as familiar, even if you've just met. You don't just attract him, you resonate with a missing piece inside him. Your presence wakes up parts of his heart he's been ignoring or suppressing. That's also why real love can feel strangely unsettling to him. It doesn't just comfort, it exposes. Because right behind the anima stands another figure, the shadow. This is everything he doesn't like to see in himself. Fear, selfishness, insecurity, the urge to run when things get too real. Love brings that shadow to the surface, especially in intimacy. Deep eye contact forces him to face who he is. Caring about your joy challenges his old habits of ego. Staying close after intimacy demands vulnerability, not performance. Moving in harmony with you pulls down his walls of control. If he's willing to stay in that fire, not perfectly, but sincerely, love becomes something more than chemistry. It becomes individuation, the slow, often uncomfortable process of becoming a whole person. Jung saw this as the true purpose of deep relationships, not to complete us in some fairy tale way, but to confront us with ourselves so we can grow. The Stoics would nod in agreement. The right relationship doesn't just give you comfort, it calls you to a higher standard of honesty, courage, and self-mastery. So those 4 signs are not just sweet gestures. They are proof of an inner movement. His gaze shows his readiness to reveal both light and shadow. His joy in your joy reveals a heart capable of empathy. His tenderness after closeness shows that ego has stepped aside for a moment. The shared dance between you hints that his soul is no longer afraid of resonance. And if you can see all of this clearly, something shifts in you too. You stop asking, does he love me enough? And start asking, is this love helping both of us become truer, braver versions of ourselves? That question is the doorway to the final, most important insight about what real connection actually means. Sometimes the easiest way to stop doubting love is not to ask for more words, but to finally believe what the silent moments have already been telling you. So let's gather everything we've seen and pull it into one clear picture. When a man is truly, deeply involved with you, it doesn't just show up in big speeches or dramatic gestures. It appears in 4 quiet, powerful signs. First, in the way his eyes don't just look at you, but into you willing to meet both your light and your shadow without flinching. Second, in the way your joy quietly becomes part of his inner compass. He isn't just chasing pleasure. He is actively invested in your well-being. Third, in the closeness after intimacy, how he holds you, stays present, and lets you see the softer parts of him once all performance is gone. And fourth, in that almost sacred synchrony between you, the unspoken dance, where your bodies, breath, and energy begin to move as if they recognize each other at a level beyond words. Psychologically, these aren't random behaviors. Jung would say this is the unconscious speaking its own language, the anima awakened, the shadow faced, the soul reaching for union. The Stoics would say this is reality revealing itself through patterns, not promises. When these 4 signs appear together, over time, you're not just looking at chemistry. You're witnessing resonance, a meeting of 2 inner worlds that transforms both people, even if neither of you has the perfect language for it. Here's the part that belongs to you. Your task is not to over-explain or make excuses for someone's absence of these signs. Your task is to observe, to trust what your body feels in the room with him, the tightening or the softening, the anxiety or the ease, to notice whether these patterns show up consistently or only when he's afraid of losing you, and to remember what both Jung and the Stoics in their own ways agreed on. Love that is real doesn't ask you to abandon your intuition, it sharpens it. So the next time you find yourself in those quiet, unguarded moments with his eyes on yours, his arms around you, or the room breathing in the same slow rhythm, pay attention. Ask yourself, not from panic, but from clarity, is this connection helping me become truer, braver, more at peace with myself? If the answer is yes, that is no small thing. That is the kind of love worth honoring and also worth protecting your heart for. If this video helped you put words to something you've always felt but couldn't explain, I'd love to hear your experience in the comments. What signs of real connection have you noticed in your own life? And if you want more content like this, where Stoic clarity meets Jungian depth to decode love, attachment, and the soul, feel free to like this video, subscribe, and stay with us. We're just getting started.